Well, I wonder where we plug the scanner in on this one. 1981 Pontiac Parisienne. When cars were cars and men were men and sheep were scared. Let's see, what are we going to do with this? Apparently it's running extremely rich when it's warm. It's stalling several times. I just started it. It stalled a couple of times. So this is carbureted. All kinds of plumbing on here. We're going to put an exhaust hose on this thing because it's going to kill us if we run it in the shop here. But let's have a look at the choke and carburetor to see if it's flooding while it's running warm. Boy, this brings back memories, actually nightmares. This is a dual jet, which is basically half of a quadrijet. And the customer did say that they had the choke replaced, the electric choke, and the primary vacuum brake had been replaced. Now that's a choke pull-off adjustment there. I don't think it's a choke problem unless it's not coming off. There are so many things that need to work properly on this thing. Notice all the thermal vacuum switches here that control vacuum. The vacuum advance unit needs to work properly. I see there's a split vacuum hose down here on this delay valve. Right down here. The EGR needs to be off and not sticking. Uses a thermal vacuum switch for the EGR. This one's for the EGR. This one's traps the vacuum advance unit. Wow. Well, see if there's any other damaged hoses here. And the power valve, we better check to see if the power valve is stuck up. I'll get a little screwdriver to check the power valve. So down through this vent hole here, there is a spring-loaded power valve. So I put a little piece of plastic tie strap in here and you can push it down. Now when it's running, vacuum holds that power piston down, and under a heavy load, when the vacuum in the intake manifold drops, that power piston rises and moves a couple of needle valves out of the jets to increase the jet opening so it richens up for power enrichment. So it's not seized. So I'm going to start this thing up and let it idle. I think I'm going to fix this cracked vacuum line first because that is for vacuum advance. Actually, I'm going to check to see if the vacuum advance is working. This has a vacuum advance unit and centrifugal advance unit inside the distributor. So there's power to the choke coil with the engine running, as you can see with the test light. And when I pull the vacuum hose off the vacuum advance unit here, I don't feel much vacuum there, and that's probably because of that split hose. And there's very little change, so I'm going to fix the vacuum advance. That vacuum advance hose is split. This is getting tighter. This choke is getting tighter. I wonder if they put the right choke housing on there. Because there's power to the choke, it should be relaxing by now. Should be relaxing. It's gotten physically tighter. So that choke housing has been changed. Wonder if the choke is defective. I thought I had power there. I do on there, but I don't on the terminal. Oh yes I do. Unless there's no ground on this choke housing. The choke's not coming off either. This should be getting hot and it's not. See the choke hose. The vacuum's a little low. That's probably because of the vacuum advance. Let's fix a couple of things here. So I've got a vacuum pump connected to the vacuum advance unit, and if I pump up the vacuum, it should hold vacuum. and it does. My vacuum pump leaks off slightly, so that's fine. Should be able to hear it pop when I pull this off. Yeah. So I fixed this vacuum hose now that was split here, and I'm going to put a vacuum gauge on here and start it up and see what kind of vacuum we have. So I've got my test light connected to the terminal on the choke housing, and if I touch it to the battery positive, it lights up, so that means there's continuity through the heating element in there. But why wasn't that thing warming up? I see there's a new terminal on here. That should have been heating up. I had power there. Alright, well, we're going to start this up again. So there's not much vacuum at that vacuum advance unit. Oh, this is connected to a ported vacuum source, that's why. Well, that's connected to the distributor. So looking at this choke housing, and it's not warming up at all. Something's not right with that choke. I think she said that when the choke was replaced, it actually ran worse. This should be coming off. This should be hot, and it's not. You see the choke is not coming off at all. Well, let's go further. So originally these choke thermostats were riveted on. You can see this has been replaced, and after replacing it, they put self-tapping screws in. Now 2 of the screws were loose. It has to ground on this housing too. So we're going to clean up this housing so there's a good ground here. And I'm going to test this coil by connecting it directly to power and ground and see if it warms up. So connecting the choke thermostat to power and ground, you can see it warms up quite nicely. So I think it didn't have a good ground on the carburetor base. So these little retainers, you need to bend them in a little bit so that there's more tension on them. Like I said, they're originally riveted. I'm going to put some new matching PK screws to hold the choke housing on. So we're looking in the venturi of this carburetor here. If you watch, you can see gasoline dribbling. You see it dribbling. So the float is either sunk or the needle speed is thickened. It's also idling too fast. I'm going to try and adjust the idle speed down. Maybe there's enough airflow through there so that this thing could use a carb overhaul. So this thing is definitely idling too fast, and that might be contributing to fuel delivery from the main jet. This is an anti-dieseling solenoid. It shuts off when we turn the key off. So that's where you adjust the base idle, and this is the minimum idle. Somebody's adjusted this screw out, so let's slow it down and get it down to about 600, 650. This is the idle mixture adjustment tool from the 80s. There were several of them. I had to resurrect this one out of my tune-up drawer. So there's 2 idle mixture screws. I got it down to about 750, but I'm going to try and adjust the idle mixture screws which are down here, see if we can get it run a little better. So I adjusted the left idle mixture, or the right idle mixture screw. Let's see where this one is. 1 turn, 2 turns, 3 turns, 4 turns, 5 turns, 6 turns. So it's set at 6 turns. Should be about 2. Let's go 2.5. I got them both set at 2.5 turns now. And it's running at 780 RPM. Let's see what it does when I put it in drive. I'm going to check the base timing too. So I'm looking in the carburetor now that it shut off. As I seen fuel dripping. Yeah, see, it's dripping. There it goes. Seen fuel dripping from the throttle blade shaft. So this carb needs to be overhauled. The float's probably a little low, or it's sunk, one or the other. There's just a whole variety of issues here. It's running better now than it was because the choke wasn't coming off at all, but it could still be better. Who knows what the plugs look like, although it looks like it's had, you know, multiple tune-ups done on it. It's got a fairly new distributor cap, and obviously the wires have been changed. They got Blue Streak wires on them. The choke's coming off now properly. I'm going to take it for a road test and see how it performs. Maybe, like I said, check the base timing. The base timing mark is way down there. Oh, it's actually stopped right on it. What are the chances of that? Actually, that's not it. That's the timing mark on the harmonic balancer, that line right there. Focus. But the timing pointer is back here. So I have to mark it with some white paint so I can see it better while it's running. Let's see where the timing's at. So the carburetor number lives behind here, back here. So I cleaned it off with a wire brush, and I'm attempting to look at it to record it in case we want to go ahead and order a carb kit. So I'm going to try and see this carburetor number. Let's see. Uh, 1708 1175. Yeah, 1708 1175. So we got the number recorded now in case we're going to go ahead and order a carb kit for this thing. Well, back in the old days, didn't get much for a dash. Speedometer, fuel gauge, and the warning lights. That's it. There's a very slight tip-in hesitation taken off from a stop. But otherwise, sidling really nice and smooth now. I know this carburetor needs some attention, but they may be happy with the way it's performing now. Feels fairly steady. The accelerator pump is probably not outputting as much as it should. Looking at everything under the hood of this car brings back memories of all of the bullshit we had to deal with back in the 80s. Vacuum advance, trap spark vacuum controls, delay valves, thermal vacuum switches. If I had some of the test equipment that I have today, thermal imaging cameras and borescopes, back those days they would have thrown me in prison for heresy or burned me at the stake for being a witch. Or a warlock, I guess. Well, let's see how this thing runs. Feels like I'm sitting in my living room couch. It's running good, actually. Passing gear works. This had a mechanical throttle valve cable that needed to be adjusted at the carburetor for passing gear. This is only a 3-speed turbo hydromatic 350. Passing gear works. Let's come to a stop and see how it idles down. Beautiful. Well, I think we're going to give it back to the customer like this and tell them that they could use a carb overhaul. I mean, it is 40 years old, so it is kind of time. Thanks for watching.